So hello everyone, this is Super Khan, and today with me I have a special guest. Would you care to introduce yourself to the viewers?
Hey, my name is Russ Mitchell, and I'm a sword nerd.
Yeah, he is indeed. We also call him the Focus Guru over on the Discord. At least that's the nickname that I've given him. He's over on the Discord for those who don't know. I discovered Russ Mitchell's YouTube content, which will be linked down below, because I was looking up Focus stuff because Kubel was talking about introducing this axe character, and I found a whole bunch of cool videos about that. And I've been hooked on this channel ever since. So
Fokosh
to
is a really fun weapon. It's not
mhm.
often you see an axe that has absolute advantage over the saber, but Fokosh does.
Yeah. Yeah, you were talking about that with Quest. Do you want to elaborate on why that's the case? Because ironically, I think in this game, Saber characters seem to just utterly dominate against them if they get their spacing right. A good Yendrek
Well, see,
player can outspace a Saber and get kills, but it seems very difficult in this game.
that's precisely the thing that's important is when you're using a Fokosh, you can block with the top of your haft,
Hmm.
and you can do a number of things with a Fokosh that you can't do with a saber. The problem is, as I was talking about with him, is you cannot be 100% realistic with these things, or else you destroy the fact that you're playing a game.
Yeah,
Like realism and gameplay are often at odds with each other. So if
yeah,
I swing a saber at you, I can't hit you with the very tip of the saber. I mean,
yeah.
I can if I want to make a very superficial cut, and a very superficial cut to the right place could be an absolute game ender,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
A tip cut under your jaw is really, really bad.
yeah,
But for the most part, I'm going to be aiming 6 to 8 inches or 10 centimeters, 15 centimeters, however much you want to put it, below my tip.
yeah,
So if I'm going to make a real cut, my reach is somewhat restricted.
yeah,
If you can see the screen right now, or if you can imagine a Fokosh, when you're swinging that thing, your point of impact is in line with the very end of your weapon.
hmm,
So a Fokosh has reach advantage on the saber,
yeah,
and it has the ability to block at a number of angles that the saber doesn't possess,
hmm,
along with the axe's, let's say, its privilege of trapping. Because if I
yeah,
cut badly, if I cut in the way that you cut with a sword while swinging an axe, what I do instead is miss with the axe head and wind up trapping and pulling.
yeah,
So it is completely okay if Yendrek has a bit of a disadvantage in gameplay because the weapon goes the other way around.
yeah,
If you can reliably block with the axe head, and that does take some practice, then the person with the saber has got to be Johnny on the spot to get to the place they need to be, or else they get wrecked. And if
yeah,
you're a Yendrek specialist, you should be focusing 1000%, because it's a linear game or a relatively linear game, on getting to your precise distance and then hurting them when they try to get into their distance and give you the free tempo by doing so.
hmm. Yeah, it's interesting too because you can stun people sometimes with the haft of the axe if you hit the head or something like that in the game as well. You can get some
Mm-hmm.
wacky combinations that way sometimes. It's like you're concussing the foe a little bit. The game doesn't simulate concussions, of course, or just head trauma of any sort in that way, but it does reduce your stamina a little bit. And sometimes you can get some really goofy interactions that sometimes go Yendrik's way and sometimes they don't because of the
Right.
limitations of the game.
Yeah, and if it wasn't done that way, then you'd have a bad game. So it
Yeah,
makes perfect sense.
yeah. Yeah, so I'll show off a little bit of what Yendrik can do. Isabella will be my Uki, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Fokosh versus Longsword tends to be a very monotonous fight
Yeah,
because each one has a specific distance in which they're very comfortable. And the name of the game is, if I stay at my distance and can lure you to it, I automatically win.
yeah. Yeah, so Yendrik has a bunch of combos. There's combo 1 where he moves forward and does this, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes this can bypass the guard. Isabella's doing... Oh, interesting. But, so sometimes the passive auto guard does protect you like you're seeing there. But Yendrek can also close in and do stuff like that. So he's got like, it's called the liver chop. So a lot of players like to, I don't know how accurate this is to real focus fighting, but a lot of players love to just dash in and get that quick hit in. Like
well, if you're not getting stabbed in the face in the process, then it's probably fine.
Yeah.
So the difficulty with any entering move like that is how do you enter safely?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And what else does he got? He's got a high guard, and he's also got a long guard as well. If I have Isabella attack, he can sometimes block this way, but you can see there, it's not, it doesn't work the way auto guard does in the game. So usually long guard in this game is to stop thrusts, specifically. It's not to stop cuts, and Yendrek's more or less acts that way as well. That's the one deviation, perhaps, from real life. But I think that's important for this game, because otherwise, I think if stabs got passively blocked by auto guard too much, they just wouldn't be viable. You'd just be deflected and then hit. And we often see that happen with characters like Marie.
I agree, and it would make for poor gameplay.
Yeah.
Also, when you're blocking with the top half of your weapon, if you move wrong or you track wrong, so for beginners who often want to block with the top of an axe, often flail their arms around. And what happens doing that is you lack the precision to guide the head adequately, and you do wind up eating a lot of wrist and arm hits that way until you learn to move the axe from the body and aim your axe head to intercept their sword using your body movement instead. So in this case, it's good gameplay and quite realistic.
Yeah. He also has this jump. I think you showed something like this in one of your videos. It was like a little kata or something. Yeah.
Going forward and very high.
Yeah. Which looks reckless at first, but it allows him to reach forward more than some of his other attacks. And you can see if she just stands there and does nothing, she gets hit.
Yep, it is the equivalent to, if you come out of, for example, Kunsteffektens, it would be an equivalent to a Schädelhau delivered with a hop. And it's used precisely because people who take fifth or do a number of head defenses tend to only bring their hands up so high, and then it bypasses those defenses. Now, if you are, for example, someone who fences from a very, very high prime or second, then you have a high enough defense to do that. Christman, for example, would do that. But most people defending the head don't bring their hand up high enough. So if you can get the tempo to make the attack, it's very effective.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember reading about, what was it, Saracen mace wielders, like Crusaders were having a lot of trouble with them because they were specifically aiming to break their swords with the mace. In fact, there was some theory I read that maybe they were the ones, the Saracens, aka the Islamic warriors, introduced the mace to Europe as we understand it. And it's just the way you defend against a weapon like that seems completely different from how you defend against a sword.
Oh, very much so, especially because most fencers, for example, most HEMA fencers are using weapons that are in some ways significantly overbuilt compared to the actual weapons. Go look in museums and you look at a lot of the weapons and they're paper thin edges for most of the length of the weapon. So breaking a weapon is much easier than most people realize, especially in the early modern or late Renaissance, when the quality of the steel was not even remotely acceptable by modern standards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think T-Boat even talks about that a little bit. I'm not a rapier expert personally, but I remember from the English Longsword Academy, the guy who runs that channel was talking about katana versus rapier. And he was saying, like, T-Boat says that a two-handed sword potentially could bend your rapier or damage your rapier if you block it the wrong way. And
I
so
believe it's
obviously,
Marcelli who describes
hmm
Ottomans doing the same thing with a strong downward chop at the rapier and breaking it
yeah,
in order to then render their opponents defenseless. So we have similar sentiments. We also see Pietromonte talking about all the different weapons you have to be carrying on you because they're going to break. When
yeah,
this breaks, shift to that. When that breaks, shift to that.
yeah. Yeah, doesn't he say like bring two maces just in case or something like that as a suggestion?
It has been a hot minute since I was working on transcribing Pietromonte. Oh God, hot
Yeah.
minute, more like almost 30 years. But yes, he talks about bringing the extra equipment because these things are consumables.
hmm
Our sports gear tend not to be consumables, or we don't want them to be.
Yeah.
And of course, in some cases, they're overbuilt for safety. But
Yeah.
yes, getting your weapon broken by a mace or an axe is absolutely possible.
Yeah.
Part of why when we block with the Fokosh, we'll often either stuff the hand or the strong of the weapon directly because
hmm
we're jamming a pound of metal right into the edge of the weapon, and that
Right.
can shatter it.
Yeah. But of course, if our rapiers were being bent in this game because of Yendrek or because of Isabella or Zera, that wouldn't be such great gameplay.
Oh no, it
So
would suck.
yeah, yeah. Their guards are more flimsy, of course, which is somewhat realistic, but
Yeah, and
if
as a
you block
saber
the
guy,
correct
I
way,
don't mind
yeah,
having disadvantage against a rapier because that's a very even fight and it gets interesting. But I
yeah,
would deeply, deeply mind if, weapon durability became a real factor. That
yeah,
would be cruddy.
yeah. And even I think some games overdo it sometimes too, like your sword breaks after a certain amount of hits or something, and it can get a little annoying. Like I don't want to deal with the dread of breaking a sword in my games, generally speaking, unless it makes sense in the context of the gameplay, because
So
it's such
that's,
a terrible
one of the
thing.
nice things about playing a game versus being, real life guy who's just investigating the quality of all their gear before every fight because
Yeah,
your life depends on whether you've maintained it properly.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So if I were to sum Yendrick up, he's a bit of a glass cannon. You know, he gets in there, he hits hard, but if he gets his spacing wrong, his auto guard is weak and he will be hit a lot of the time.
Yep. And I would tell you that most people who learn to fight with an axe have exactly that experience.
Yeah, nice. So it's actually reasonably close to the reality in that way, while still being
Absolutely.
fun for gameplay. Yeah. He also has this, you might see this here, this cocky walk kick is what I'll end off with.
Show it to me
So,
again because I love watching it.
yeah, so he just taunts you and then throws this kick. And
Mm-hmm.
if your opponent's not prepared for it, you actually can get them into a stun lock with this kick. And like they're sort of caught off balance, but he's deliberately opening himself up and taunting you. So this is quite a flex to land on your opponent if you somehow manage it in PvP.
If you can get them to enter into range because you're opening yourself up, they may
Yeah,
walk right into that kick. And
yeah,
that movement is pretty well represented. If you look at Carpathian folk dance, you see a lot of those kinds of low kicking actions going on. It's very
really.
clearly these guys were not afraid to use their legs and swing them around. Not something you see a whole lot in Western Europe during this period.
Yeah, yeah. Like Fiore discusses it a little bit, but that's blocking with the sword and like you throw a kick and you can do all this other stuff. It's not quite the same and not as common. Yeah,
Right. Also not the same boot. He's kicking with the heel because the boots don't have anywhere near the structure. Even
yeah,
Yendrik's footwear has enough structure that he can kick safely much differently.
right.
All right, what you got next, man?
Okay, so next up is Samuel. He's a little bit of an enigma with how he's described in this bio. His fighting style
Mm-hmm.
says military hussar saber. I don't know if
Okay.
you've played him a whole lot or
Just a
seen what he
tiny
can do.
touch.
Yeah? So, from what I've observed, he seems to do a fair bit of snap cuts, but he also has like wider, heavier swings to sort of communicate that he's got a heavier saber.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a really good guard. He seems to hold his hand out and defend himself well. And he does some lunges as well, thrown in. So he seems to, like, if you compare him to somebody like Gedeon, he seems a bit closer to later saber systems, if that makes sense.
So let's see it.
Yeah. So I'll show you in the training mode again. And let's do Bara this time to show him off. So he has cuts like this, which are bigger, but he can also, what a lot of players will do is they'll throw these wider cuts first, and they might feint into something like this, like a back Y is what it's called. Y is in button on the controller.
Right.
And so he plays a very tight sort of style. He can defend himself really well, and he can do a lot of these snap cuts as well as these sort of wide swings and sort of throw you off. And this false edge cut right here.
Notice how that wide cut was being delivered with the false edge?
Mm-hmm.
So if it had to be delivered with a true edge, it would be even wider. So it looks like it's going to be wide, and then it comes whipping around really fast. You do see quite a lot of those kind of attacks in East Central Europe. One thing I would point out that really makes him interesting is the way he stances. He is stanced very much like a covered cut fencer. See how relatively back weighted he is?
Yeah.
And his body is using a small demi-lunge as you initiate the guard. So if you move him around, watch how his body weight is depicted shifting as he prepares to attack.
Interesting. I haven't examined that closely before. And then, you know, if you attack him like this, this is what his guard looks like. He's actually quite hard to hit because he guards a lot of these openings very well. So
and the high first and the high first and second going down to the low second, you see that a lot with Christman and others. It's a very, very effective defense because you actually don't have to move your saber very far to get a good block. What you do need is really good shoulder mobility.
Yeah.
You see how he's always leaning just a touch in, a touch out?
Yep. And his movement speed is pretty solid. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not. He's not an Alexander though, or a Denis is what he's called now in the game. Sort of Demon Stiff style movement. And he's not like Bara. You see how quick Bara is. He's like zippy.
Oh yeah.
But it's definitely very solid fundamental footwork, and he guards himself well. So very solid character, generally speaking. He's definitely for...
Those movements are absolutely on par with someone who's got a saber with an elaborated yeoman and who has a very specific blocking method. And it's really nice to see the high prim and second represented as well. It's not something a lot of people really grok.
Yeah. And another thing you can do with him is he has some lunging moves as well, or dashing moves. So he's got a cut like this, where you can come in quickly, and if your opponent tries to punish, you can transition into a snap cut like that.
Yep, now here's an interesting thing. Do a lunge. Notice how it's not actually a proper lunge. He's letting that back foot move to catch up.
Yeah.
That's also very similar to Christman era fencing, although not as elaborate as it would be. Christman turns it almost into a sort of lunging advance step or lunging gather step. But the fact that he's bringing that back foot forward and altering his fundamental range means you can use that to close distance and then go to your defense much closer than you would be otherwise. Of course, it depends on your opponent and where you want to camp out, because it could be suicidal. But it's also a nice way of getting in close if you're then going to start doing angle play with your saber.
Something as well is he's got different guard positions. So most of the sabers, they just got the neutral guard, and then they're defending guards, right? But he actually has a high guard, a long guard. All the characters have long guard, and then also a low guard. So that also kind of sets them apart. So he can stand like this if he wants and throw a big cut. He can also try and bait you in with low guard and do something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So very versatile in that way, I would say.
Yep, very much so.
Yeah. And with long guard, he's got a very long range stab. And you can see there, if Bara does nothing, you know, it's very threatening. It's a little bit telegraphed. That's kind of the price to pay from a game balance perspective. But it's up to him to react to it still.
Yeah, and because this game renders as effectively as a physics engine, if you watch his pelvis, you have a pretty good idea where he's going to be moving, which is really nice detail-wise.
Yeah. And one other thing as well. So if Bara wanted to defend this, he could try sidestepping it, but the simplest way, if I can find the key on my keyboard, I don't usually play keyboard, I'm using that to control the other guy. Hang on. There we go. Long guard. So, like I was saying, long guard will defend it just like so. And the blades kind of bind together like that. But if Samuel wants to counter this, he can also come in with a cut. So he has a similar lunging move. If you press X on the controller, that becomes a cut. And you can either beat the blade.
So what he does here is perform a beat attack to pull Barabasz's saber offline, and then he has an open line in which to attack.
Yeah. And so in the middle of a match, you can see him lunge like that and think, oh, he's going to stab. But no, he wants to blade beat or cut you. Yeah. And from here as well, he can actually cut low as well. It's kind of short range, but I could see a scenario where like you're exchanging with somebody, and then out of nowhere you just go low. So this game simulates that pretty well with a lot of the saber characters. You don't want to open a lot of times with a leg cut, because you're just saying, here's my head, right?
Right.
But if you set that up,
close, the difference in geometry makes the leg blow effective, particularly if you have the false edge available.
Yeah. And this is one of my favorite leg cuts in the game.
Balances this out as well. Is now I have problems playing effectively with Barabasz, even though I like him. But you see how everything he does is ankle driven. He telegraphs much less. Yeah.
Yeah, Barabasz is actually the character I main currently, so we'll cover him in a little bit. But I like that he's really quick. He gets in and brawls and stuff like that. But yeah, Samuel, I'd say he's for more patient players, but he still has those options to lunge in and to sort of throw your opponent off with different attacks from different guards. And because his defense is so tough to get through, it can be really frustrating to deal with if you're a more offensively minded player trying to get through that guard.
Yeah, because if you lose your patience, you're going to wind up at the wrong distance, and then you get whacked.
Yeah. And like I was saying, he has some of those slow moves, but he can feint it and go into a snap cut instead. And then there's your hand hit.
Yep.
Okay, next is Kalkstein. He's the guy with the Stiavona, the broadsword. Interesting here, it says Bolognese, but it also says learn from books. So he learned basically everything that he's learned from a book. He doesn't have a lot of sort of practical battlefield experience, is what's being said here. But he looks really elegant.
He's the guy who's gonna fence pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, and out of all the characters, I really think he might well be the most stylish of them all, especially if you get him just right.
Well, it's interesting to me that having trained martial arts and fencing for a long time, martial artists don't care whether they look cool. Fencers care super, super much. Looking cool is rule one.
Yeah.
All right, let's see Kalkstein go.
Okay. Yeah, Barabasz will be our test dummy again. So, naturally, because he's got a straight sword, one of his advantages is reach. Simply having a curved sword, as you're well aware as well, means you cannot present the point straight on. So, even on the cut, Kalk has a surprising amount of range with this sword.
Yes, and the German-covered cut masters describe things you can do with a saber that you can't really do with a palash, and things you can do with a palash that you can't do with a saber.
Yeah.
And the straight blade from the palash, absolutely gives you an extra inch or two of cutting reach, and it can be very useful.
Yeah, and you can see here, by stepping diagonally, he actually switches legs. And when you switch legs, you have different moves available. So he has a whole different complexity that way, compared to somebody like Bar, who never switches legs, really.
Right.
So he has the regular basic cuts like this. You can actually combo these together a bunch of times like so, as well.
So one thing that's really, really neat about the way Kobold set that up is he really does look just bolognese as hell. If you watch his back shoulder while he's performing those shoulder cuts, that is absolutely dead from the instructive manuals.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not familiar.
I know instructors who teach bolo, and the ones who are really, really clean in their mechanics, you can see that back shoulder indicating the cut just immediately.
Yeah, you can see some of these are very stylish as well. Like this one. This one packs a punch, but you can see if a player calls it out and you whiff, you can be in trouble. But if you make contact, the blade is at least in the way if the opponent's blocked, and you can sort of carry on. So,
right. And moves of that sort are used in order to create setups. So here's my question. I make this action. How are you going to respond? And that's sort of the intellectual framework that Bolognese swordplay plays with. So you could use this with Kalkstein in order to say, hey, block this, what are you going to give me? Then, with a predictable riposte coming up, let the auto defense take care of the riposte and hit them, or stab them.
And something I do like doing, even just with these basic cuts, I don't play Calc a lot, but when I do, sometimes I'll just throw these cuts and whiff on purpose, and my opponent thinks I'm making a mistake, but then you gotta remember, I can switch my timing up any time. I don't have to maintain this tempo the whole time, so if my opponent tries to step in, I can suddenly stab. Oh, one thing about Calc as well, you can see that he gets exhausted pretty quickly. This is a pretty heavy broadsword. I think the example it's based on is 1,300 grams. Which, you know...
The blades on these are really quite light, at least the surviving examples I've seen in the backs of armories and stuff. But those hand guards have an immense amount of weight. Also, if he's learned it from books and hasn't had a lot of conditioning that way, him tiring out fast is a nice game balance method of presenting an interesting character.
100%.
Here's a guy who's technical as hell, but doesn't have the, hi, I've been working in a field forever and ever. And you can absolutely change up tempo. One of my favorite things to do with a beginner is just to spam a cut and start swinging something, you know, almost droid style like Star Wars. And it's like, oh, there's a forearm. But then if you change the nature of the cut, all of a sudden the tempo gets tighter and you wind up getting whacked in the arm for your trouble. And when you move out of beginner land and intermediate land, you recognize it for the crap it is. But it's amazing how many beginners don't see that because they get locked into the idea of here's one rhythm rather than a constantly changing one.
And the best Calc players are especially good at that. They'll change up the rhythm on you out of nowhere. They'll cancel a bunch of his attacks. So you see this big wide slash coming in, and you're like, this is easy to block. But then there's some follow-up. And he also does a lot of cut to stab combos, too.
I was just about to remark on that. There you go. Yep.
So there's this, which... I mean, Bar is blocking it, but you can imagine in the middle of an exchange, you start slipping the stab in. That's a whole nother threat they have to deal with that they might not expect. And you don't have to throw that stab. You can also just cut. So it can keep your opponent guessing.
Very much so.
And he's also got long guard and this wiggle stab.
Oh, I love the implementation for that.
And especially in the first person, you can see how much that blade is actually moving. It's sort of hard to see from this perspective, but it can really throw your opponent's auto guard off if thrown at the right distance.
Right, because he's able to change lines very, very easily, which is one of the advantages of that heavily back-weighted blade.
What else? When he switches legs, he has other moves as well. And when you long guard from this position, he does a guard like this.
Mm-hmm.
It behaves like a long guard, but you can also use it. Like if Bara were to throw a swing, maybe I can see if I can time this on my keyboard. But yes, you can be blade beat like so. But oh, we doubled. But if you time that just right, what you can do is you can let that blade roll off yours and then cut the head. I have a short on YouTube showing that actually.
Mm-hmm.
Doing that in a live match.
It's
So,
also an absolutely horrible position for your opponent if you're good at. Well, that was a good one.
yeah.
That was a disengage. That was a disengage by tempo. Or
Yeah.
if you can simply thrust with a passing step backwards, you
Yeah.
haven't lost any reach, but it looks like you have, and then your opponent walks on the point and feels very dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, so your opponent will see this and recognize it's long guard and try to beat it, but you have ways to immediately punish that if you time it right. If you don't, well then you just got hit, but...
Yep, but time it right and the thing for which they're aiming is simply no longer there and you quit.
Yeah. And obviously from
This
here...
game really likes to punish the whip, which I love.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a concept in German fencing from what I recall. I'm a beginner level Hemus myself, but I did a little bit of German longsword, and that's one thing that was discussed, is just punishing a whiff and capitalizing on that opportunity.
Absolutely, it's a free tempo.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got these wide cuts too from long guard, so a lot of characters when they use long guard, they're more or less limited to stabbing. Or stab adjacent moves is what I call them. We'll discuss that a little bit, but Barabasz, for instance, can push cut from long guard as well. Looks like a stab, but it can also be a cut.
Right, but Bolognese's shoulder cuts,
Yeah.
while theoretically slower, not necessarily slower, but theoretically slower, can
Yeah.
convert from full power thrusts to full power cuts and back and forth with no difficulty whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it's beautifully true to the style from which the character is being drawn.
Yeah. What else? We could probably... You can see how many moves this guy has. We could spend a while just examining each of these. I'll see if I can find some more cut to thrust combos. There's that one.
Beautiful.
Yeah. If you set that up just right, again, you can just stab right to the face. Stabs to the face in this game, just as in HEMA, or can be pretty damn devastating. Difficult to block.
Yeah, notice as well that that the end of that initial action, that big chambered motion is good for seeing what you're doing, but you're also voiding target.
Yeah.
So somebody who's really good at tempo can set that up to where the void itself is functional before the thrust.
Yeah. And one move that a lot of people who fight against Kalk really hate is this too. It's just a simple retreat stab. Yeah. Because especially if you're a Barabasz over here, you're like, I gotta get close to this guy. But he's doing this to punish any type of cut that I'm throwing, you know? And especially players who are good at canceling. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, and there's this one too. So he throws this wide cut, but then there's the point. And so I love that about Kalk, although I don't play him that much. Just that versatility with the cuts and the thrusts.
You have long tempo thrusts, short tempo thrusts, long tempo cuts, short tempo cuts. It's a really, really nice representation of the style.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's Kalk. Definitely, I'd say he's a more tactical character. He's not the character to play if you want to be moving fast all the time. You want to get in there, get out quickly, like Laszlo or Barabasz. But he definitely does reward creativity, and he rewards the usage of all of his tools to throw your opponent off.
Yep.
Okay. Next up, let's do Isabella. So she's a Furist. Funny thing is, early in the development of the game, she was kind of a mishmash of sort of German style and Italian style in one character. She had a lot of Zwerghaus going on and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
Kubel gave her a different move set down the road. I think he's going to introduce a German fencer besides this drunk monk over here. uh,
Oh, good,
in a
because
bit, yeah,
I have not seen new Isabella's moveset, so now I'm really curious.
yeah. So I'll show her off. So Isabella is a funny character in some ways.
Hmm.
So, especially if you have two Isabellas, her defense is really solid. And it can be very tough to make a lot of her moves work. It takes a really good player to make them work, but if you look at her moveset, as you might expect from a longsword, there's a lot here.
Hmm.
And that's just the right foot forward. You've got this left foot forward stance, and you've got even like posta de donna,
Hmm.
and you've got long guard, you've got high guard, you've got iron gate, that's one of the low guards. Just all sorts of different stuff you can do with her. And one of the complaints a lot of players do have with her is lately her meta's kind of limited to 5 moves. I wonder what your thoughts are on that in general. Like it just feels like with a lot of Isabella players, they're only able to make 5 or so moves work. So, like for example, just her Y cuts. What else? A lot of high guard is used actually in competition in this game.
Hmm.
And occasionally you'll see these upcuts too, which I really like. They look awesome, I think. But beyond that, you don't tend to see a lot of her more special moves thrown in there.
So you don't see as much of the movements from Finestra, etc.
Yeah,
That's a pity because
yeah.
Finestra is different than Aux. A
Mhm.
lot of early Hema dinosaurs simply looked at the two and decided they were close enough that they were the same thing, but
Yeah.
they're not, and they do different things in terms of how they manipulate the line. If
Yeah.
you can play from Finestra strongly, that's something that could give a saber wielding opponent fits in terms
Mhm.
of range manipulation.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll go through some of her other moves. Something that a lot of Isabella players love to do is also they switch to the left foot forward. It's kind of subtle. You don't see much of a difference in her defense if you're not experienced, but she has this snap cut that she can do
Mm-hmm.
from this foot forward.
Yep.
And so what will often happen is you're trying to make something happen against her defense, but then she just throws this snap cut in the middle of your attacks, and then you're done. Because it might look like a weak flick at first, but that packs a punch, and it goes straight to the head. So
Oh, yeah.
you're done at that point.
Yeah, you don't need a telegraph to cut strongly, especially with a two-handed weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, especially Kendoka, I've noticed. They seem to be masters at that type of thing, just quickly nailing you in the head with that downward sort of snap cut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Isabella actually does have a Kendo adjacent looking move. This sort of thing. Your opponent can block it, but there are situations where if your opponent's whiffing or something, you can dash in and throw this,
Mm-hmm.
and it will end the fight right there. It's really reckless, but it's sort of a higher risk, higher reward type maneuver.
Yeah. Tempo moves.
Yeah. And then you've got Posta de Donna,
Mm-hmm.
which does a number against the guard, yeah.
Yeah.
And depending on the foot
So,
forward, she does a different position, like that.
so it's the really high posta di donna rather than posta di donna on the left or right.
Yeah. And you can see if she's in measure, it will break through. It won't always kill because the blade kind of nullifies a
Gets
little bit
bound
of the
up in the
damage.
process. Yeah.
Yeah. But you do take damage, and that means your stamina goes down, your HP goes down, your ability to fight back gets deteriorated as you take damage, so.
Yep. I know some guys in the lightsaber community, oddly enough, who have become absolute masters of doing that defensively,
Mm-hmm.
rolling into posto di danno while you're coming after them,
Mm-hmm.
picking up the blade, and then coming across with really close, tight cuts. And they can be a real pain in the butt to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the really good Isabella players will actually throw that stance in the middle of an exchange, and it will throw people off. Sometimes they'll try to punish it, and then they eat that massive cut to the dome or to the body. Even to the body, it will kill because it's such a powerful cut. And it's a good way to style on your opponent too. You're telling them like, come over here. So in a way, from what I've observed, it's actually a very defensive stance in the sense that you're sort of claiming a bunch of space from your opponent.
Yep. Here's my invitation. Please do the thing I want you to do.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll do that. And then you cut them in half like a pickle.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's like Wrathguard in the German system. Similar idea, right? Same principle. So, what else does she have? She has Iron Gate, which is another invitation as well. You're like, here's my head, but if you come forward, you've got this combination. Yeah.
Or you're going to eat a beat cut that drops you offline, and then you get stabbed again, or hit with that short, sharp snap cut that she can throw.
Yeah. And I would say out of all...
If I were playing Isabella, I would just spam that until people solved it. And if they didn't solve it perfectly, I would just keep spamming it until the bout was over, and then shift to a different move set. Only if they've shown that they can figure out how to get past that invitation.
Yeah.
In terms of tempo, it's very powerful.
Yeah, we're of similar minds. Like when I'm playing against people in matches, I will sometimes use the same move over and over again. Because if it's gonna keep working, there's no reason to change it. And
that's
sometimes
also how you shape your opponent's behavior.
Yeah.
Train them to expect a thing and to do a thing, and then you can move one step down the line in their malposition.
Yeah. Yeah, because you don't have to keep doing it. You can do other stuff as well. So it just gets them in a sort of headspace. Some people will be especially mean in that way. They'll try and throw grab executions in this game. So if your opponent doesn't defend the grab, you get the decapitation like that. Other characters have similar grab executions, so you have to press back to get out of that. But sometimes in matches it gets hilarious because you keep trying to go for that grab execution, and they keep defending it. But while they're focused on defending that, you're thinking of slipping a stab in or some other move. So it can get kind of hilarious.
Yeah, similar to Yendrek's axe choke.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What else? She has low guard from right foot forward as well, where she just puts the point down. And she has that combination, which can be pretty neat.
Yep. That's the strength of longsword if you time it right. Those cuts are big and slow, but because they're big and slow, they also command a lot of space while she's using a passing step to change the distance game up. And if you're accustomed to a more twitchy style, it doesn't look like much, but then you find yourself mal-tempoed very quickly.
Yeah. And what else? She has long guard stabs, of course. And she can also do this. So if you're trying to sort of... If you're trying to... What was the button again? Here we go. If you're trying to bind with her blade, with long guards you're expecting a thrust, you can come around and try hitting the hand. And then your opponent has to then adjust to that, to block that. So that could be pretty fun. Yeah, so out of all the characters...
That little Montante kick to start. That was a nice Easter egg by Kobold.
Yeah, that's a recent addition, actually. I really like that one. And she also does, like, the Witcher-style flourishes as well. Occasionally, after beating the opponent and stuff like that. Really fun. And out of all the characters, I would say she fights for the center the best. Like, a good Isabella player wants to place that blade in the center and just dominate that space with snap cuts, with descending blows, sometimes with even posta di donna and stuff like that. And I don't think any other character does a better job at doing that than her. She does a great job at playing counter as well, sort of instantly punishing an opponent who's trying to initiate an exchange.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's Isabella. We could spend a long time going through each of these moves. Is there any move here that...
I want to see how she
looks
works from Fenestra. So Fenestra to cut.
Okay.
XX.
Hang on. There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and you saw how the hands pulled back and her body turns? That's not Ox. It sets up a different geometry than Ox does.
Yeah.
Yay, so kudos to Kubal. A lot of longsword folks tend to miss that these two are very, very different positions.
Yeah. Yeah, as I come from the German background, so when I saw that, I thought it was Ox myself. So when I first saw it, so yeah.
And you would think that until you see how her shoulder turns and her face orients not down towards the opponent, but towards her own blade.
Right. Yeah, so that's not a combination thrown very often, but it's a pretty powerful cut that comes after. So if you slip that in when your opponent's not expecting once more, you can achieve a decisive result after sort of feeling the waters with the thrust before you come in with that big cut. Yeah, so that's Isabella. Oh yeah, another move that I really like with her, from left foot forward, is this sidestep into an upcut. Really nice move. Very good to single tempo your opponent. If Bara wants to come in with just a normal descending cut, this can be a good way to trap his blade and get to the side and hit him. Let's see if I can actually time that.
That cut in opposition can be a real problem if you don't have the...
Yeah.
Well,
did not time it there, but yeah. It's very tough because I'm using a controller and a keyboard at the same time. So, in my defense, but...
I'm not roasting you, I promise.
Yeah. But if you watch, like, I don't know, Venator's tournaments or on YouTube, you can see it being done a lot. Might even be easier to do against a bot, but...
Yeah, it's interesting. You see some of her auto defense actually rotates through posted on the left and right, which is different than the high version of it. That geometric is also really, really nice, and a lot of people neglect that posta, and I think it's more important in Fiore than a lot of people realize.
Interesting, yeah. Again, I don't know much about Fiore, so... What I have heard, though, is Fiore... How I've heard it described is Fiore prefers to control the blade first, and then attack, whereas German fencing is more about, I'm going to defend and attack in the same motion. Not that Italian doesn't have that, but like the focus is a bit different. At least that's what I've heard. I don't know how accurate that is, but
run either way on that one, so I'm not going to shoot my mouth off on that and have every Fiorist in those counties coming for me.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Isabella. All right, Gedeon next. He has a Turkish saber, is what it's called. And he uses cross-cutting.
Yep.
And despite his age, he's quick on his feet. And I actually love this because he's a chunky guy. He doesn't look like he's the fittest guy at first, but he can explode and move really, really fast in really short bursts and catch you off guard. And I know from experience there are some old guys out there, they don't look like they're fast, but they are, because they have that experience, they have that athleticism they've built over the years, and Gedeon kind of feels like he's that way. He's just had a few too many beers at the pub, maybe, but he is still a really quick guy on his feet. So, like some other characters, he has left foot forward and right foot forward stances, which will switch as he throws these cuts. And so a lot of what you're doing is these cross-cutting sort of movements.
Yeah, notice the actions of the back knee.
Mm-hmm.
So you have little voids you can use to create a whiff,
Yeah.
and then you've got wide open for a game-ending cut.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's a bit like Laszlo in some ways, I suppose. Like, when you're playing as him, it's very easy to get hit if you're not managing your distance. But what he can do is he can interpose his blade with this powerful cut out of nowhere and take your hand right off if you're trying to get in and get a quick hit on him. And so he's trying to take space away from you with a lot of these attacks. And he's also got a long guard. From left foot forward, it's like this. He can do a big chop from there. So what he can do is somebody tries to stab him, he can roll with the blade and punish like that after getting a bind. Because of how long guard works. He's not a very stab-heavy character, as you might imagine, but he does have a few stabs as well. One crooked stab like that, and then this lunging stab as well. And yeah, a lot of his combos on the surface are very intuitive, right? Like you step forward, you cut from the right shoulder, then you switch legs type of thing. But
yeah, I like the one more. That's a nice touch.
Yeah.
And very on target for somebody who's coming up training Palzati.
Yeah. Yeah, so my understanding is yeah. My understanding is cross-cutting is one of the interpretations of Polish saber, right? Like there's different, because obviously we don't have surviving manuals from this time period, so a lot of it's reconstruction and educated guesswork based on other sources or later sources and etc.
Yep, it's true. We've got Polish saber, but what we have surviving is Napoleonic and on.
Yeah.
Rather than actually early modern, because they had bigger and better things to do with their time than jotting that stuff down.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is a fun one. So, the way this game handles certain feints and combos is there's like this magic dust thing that occurs. I don't know if you can see that.
Yep, it's fun.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm not a fan of it because it's like you're announcing that you're doing a feint, but I also understand why it's there, because there has to be some sort of telltale sign, I think, sometimes, that your auto guard is going to get compromised if you don't deal with this attack right now, type of thing. Because I think to a lot of players, it might be a bit odd as to why that lunge sort of bypasses your guard out of nowhere, if that telltale sign is not there.
And that's where you need something that makes gameplay actually fun.
Yeah. So if Bara does nothing, that combination will typically get through. Because that lunge comes in so fast, and the idea is it's tricking the auto guard. So as the player, you're supposed to then respond to that and get out of dodge, or interrupt him somehow in the middle of that before he launches that lunge. What else? He's got this as well. So from long guard, he can kind of delay that cut. That catches a lot of people actually, because they think he's wide open in the middle of this, but if you get tangled up with his sword, you can end up hit yourself instead. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So really the response to this is just to be patient, not to mess with that, because otherwise he will nail you a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it doesn't have to be a huge elaborated tool set if he's got lots of tools for manipulating distance and tempo.
Yeah.
Which he clearly does.
Yeah. And it's kind of like you were saying with cuts to the shoulder. It's not that they're slow, it's just that the rotation is different, I guess. So he
Well,
still
it's
explodes
okay.
forward.
It's okay if they're slower, because they're also doing more. They're taking up and commanding more space.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the things that folks who only wrist cut miss. Is I can do stuff with a wrist cut, and it's quick. It's quick as hell, but it only commands so much space. When I use the shoulder for an action, I'm commanding much more space. And so, do I want a short, fast motion, or do I want a big, slow motion? Both are equally powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And of course, the disadvantage with the way he's standing, you can see his arm is right there. But if you manage your distance correctly, that's not a problem. But a lot of players, me included, I'm not usually a Gedeon player, find it kind of unintuitive to defend from that position in this game, because you're sort of saying, hey, you can come snap cut me. If you step into measure of your opponent, and an opponent has snap cutting tools or wrist cutting tools to instantly hit you. So that can be a problem that Gedeon runs into, is that if you are in your opponent's measure, your arm can get eaten alive before you can even respond.
Yes, and that's a historical problem. So
yeah, exactly.
Having that represented is really nice.
Yeah, and he also does have a little bit more HP than some of the other characters as well, so that's kind of compensation for that. Yes, you can hit him a lot, but he's also... It's not that he's not easy to kill. If you hit him in the right spot, he will still go down just like anyone else, but he's a bit chunkier to sort of make up for some of his disadvantages.
Yep. All right, who we got next?
Okay, we got Jan and Barabasz. They're both actually pretty similar in some ways. They have some of the same moves. But we'll start with Jan here. So it says Polish-Hungarian based. And he fights with a versatile saber, well-balanced style, can handle any type of enemy weapon, combining solid reach with solid footwork. And I think that's a pretty good sum up of what he can do. He's very versatile. A lot of people on the server joke that he's the best rapier, because he actually does have quite a few good stabs as well. So...
Good. Saber's not just effective. You can absolutely thrust with sabers.
Yeah. And
anybody who says otherwise has clearly not been stabbed in the mask with a saber and felt really dumb.
Yeah. And so the other thing is his saber's pretty long. It's one of the longest in the game. I think only Sava has a longer saber than him. And I find this is a...
By the generation of saber being depicted, what he's showing here.
Yeah. And as a Barabasz player, I find sometimes, despite the fact that our moves are very similar, a good Jan player can really play to that reach. And so even if we're just doing a regular cut exchange, Jan has the extra inches of saber over me, so I have to spend time trying to close in to where I can threaten him, while he's just free to start launching attacks at me.
Yep. I'm assuming he has a hell of a snap cut.
Yeah, so he has this, which comes in pretty quickly. If your opponent's just ready to guard it, it doesn't do much, but it's a good way to harass the guard. And if your opponent whiffs, you can quickly throw this in. And his best snap cut is a snap cut that a lot of people hate because it's a retreating one.
Good.
So,
good.
Yeah.
Should be.
Yeah. So, especially again, as a Barabasz player, if I'm trying to close in on him and he's throwing some wide cuts, he can suddenly throw this, and then my hand can just get hit if I'm not careful. So, a lot of players will love throwing this. If they want to get space, if something's going wrong, they quickly go back to this, because it's the safest option, and if it hits the head, it can still kill, just like any other blow. So.
And because his saber is longer, it's also subtly slower.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is actually how the matchup is balanced, this particular matchup between Bara and Jan. So they're very similar characters in some ways, but Jan has slower movements but a longer weapon, while Bara has faster movements and a shorter weapon. That's the primary difference between these two. And Bara is more explosive with his speed, which we'll cover. So he has this chop from long guard as well. Very good to displace a stab and then chop straight to the head. Rapier players really hate this in this game. It's basically the move to use if a rapier's trying to stab you, because you'll bind the blade up and then quickly hit the head.
Yep.
What else? He's got the normal saber combos. And some other... Oh yeah, the stabs. I was saying he's the best rapier. So he has this low thrust, which is very easy to tap people who are not paying attention with. And if you land it just right to the hand especially, you can kill just like that. End the fight right there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then...
A lot of people forget that supinated thrusts are absolutely a thing with saber. You don't have to pronate and roll that thumb down to throw a good thrust.
Yeah.
That's a great example of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen people do tests, like, with sabers. They thrust just like this, and it goes straight through the... It was a pig they were testing it on. The saber just went right through. No problem. It was a curved saber, too. You wouldn't think it was the best weapon for stabbing with, but it had no issues going through.
Oh, no problem at all, because it's cutting while it thrusts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that supinated thrust is the go-to thrust method that my lineage teaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that makes sense, because, again, he's got the Hungarian sort of inspiration. Yeah.
Yep.
So people really hate this thrust. Plus, you can cancel it, so I don't have to commit completely to it. I can back off.
A position and a thrust, and then get them to overreact.
Yeah, and then that's where this back Y cut can come in, the snap cut. So you think there's an opening after I've canceled, but now you're getting bonked as you try to close in.
Yep.
So, what else about him? His guard is really good too. It's not the best in the game, but it's far from bad. It's really good. And just all around, he's very versatile as a character. He's got some wider low cuts as well. Some sidestep stuff as well. And if you're just a little bit offline, you can get past the auto guard with that. And the cool thing about this sidestep is you don't have to do this cut from it. You can also cancel it into other stuff. It, like the back Y, for example.
Okay, just for pacing, I've got about 25-30 minutes before I have to leave the house, so we may have to do this in 2 sessions.
That's all good, yeah. I don't mind. So...
Yeah, he's really well represented, and I love how subtle that little Volta step you just did is, too.
Yeah. So you can see there, I sidestepped, right? And then I did back Y instead. I didn't do that big slash. So you can see how an opponent might try to adjust or punish that, and then there's a snap cut to your hand. That's why people hate it so much, is that it's always an option, more or less.
Yeah. So I think they wrote that up very fairly. He's extremely flexible and adaptable.
And he's got this one, too. It's called the corkscrew by the community. I don't think it's actually called that in the game, but we've called it that. Yeah, it's just called thrust, but such a creative name, huh? For this crooked stab, but it's a really high commitment.
Because you can pick up opposition with it.
Yeah, but it's a very high commitment move. So this one, this little jab, I can cancel at any time. This one I can't. I have to commit to it.
So you might be surprised. I actually teach that move. So one of the things it's really, really good for is if you get the offline step in the proper tempo, they're absolutely cutting empty air because you used to be there and now you're not. Yeah,
and in this game, like I've said a little bit before, like if you step offline, if this guy doesn't do anything, like he's already that much more open than he used to be. So I think that's fairly well represented. The best way to stop this thrust in this game is not to sidestep it or to sidewalk it, because you'll just be hit. You're easier to hit that way. You actually want to sort of stand still and try and long guard it.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of players don't understand. They get caught by it while they're trying to sidestep it, and the curve finds them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big high commitment move because you're changing lines in the middle of the thrust.
Yeah. And that's
if
a disadvantage.
If people don't realize that, they're going to get wrecked.
Yeah. If you displace that thrust, though, it's like he's got nothing. Like, he's put everything into that powerful stab, and you might be able to then just punish him. So he's got like a sort of jab, but then he's got a more powerful sort of commitment stab. But that's why he's called the best rapier. Like, these stabs are dangerous. They will very often kill in one hit. Even this one, if it hits the right spot, you're just done, especially if you walk into it. If you walk into that stab, say you're Barabasz and you're trying to compensate for your reach disadvantage, like, you're just making it worse. So.
Oh yeah, you walk into someone's Yeoman like that. Good night, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. So that's Jan.
All right, and now?
Oh yeah, he's got 3-hit combos too. So like, he can do stuff like that as well and just overwhelm the opponent with attacks in some situations. But I think we covered more or less all the meta stuff with him. Oh yeah, he's got this cut as well. I'm surprised that's not hitting, actually. That might be a bug, but you can see the threat there, right? Like, it comes right around, yeah. So, it's a slower cut that your opponent might have time to react to, but if you use it as a tempo switch in the middle of an exchange, I've found that can just hit the face immediately, even if your opponent's trying to block.
So one of the things that particular kind of move is for, and it's a specialist move, it's not for beginners, is intentionally creating a strong-on-strong bind, which then gives you the open angle to land a cut.
I see.
So you time that correctly and you pick up their blow on your strong. The weak is completely uninhibited. So you've defended yourself and hit simultaneously.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to spam it because then they're going to see what you're doing and get wrecked. But every now and then it's really nice to have in your pocket.
Yeah. Especially against Isabella players, this type of cut works really well. Because of the way she holds her sword naturally, it's sort of fighting for the center. But that blade's coming around the side. So if Isabella is not prepared for it, it'll hit her right in the face.
Yep.
Okay, then we've got Barabasz. Yeah, this is my main. Uses a Cossack saber. And his fighting style is Hungarian / self-developed, which I really like. Because not all of these characters use stuff that's strictly from a manual. We've actually discussed this already with Yendrek. Like, there's stuff that Kupel he was messing around with mocap, and he made up some of his own moves that are still plausible. Like, they're likely stuff that people have tried, but they're not actually written somewhere in a manual from the past. So Barabasz, how I would describe him is he's a pressure character. So he likes to get in there and sort of start the exchange. And if you play his game, he'll often beat you to the punch. So he has some of the same combos that Jan has, but a little bit quicker. Especially this chop here. This chop, I really like using this to harass the opponent's guard and aim for the hand. Especially if they make a mistake, they try to feint something, or they react wrongly to something I'm doing. Like, this will come in and hit the hand. So I really like this cut. It also can aim right to the head under the right circumstance. Bara has a really fast snap cut as well. It's faster than Jan's, and it comes in out of nowhere. What I like to do, if an opponent isn't prepared, is I do a quick dash to the side, and I hit the hand like that.
Yep.
If you adjust your movement to defend against it, or you use some sort of more threatening big cut, you can stop that. But if you're sort of forced on the defensive because of the pressure that I'm applying, I can start sniping your hand and applying even more pressure, and you're like, oh shit, my guard's not working. And you're sort of backed into a corner as I keep tagging your hand over and over until you go down.
Right.
And he has some of the same combos too. And if he closes in with this particular combo, it will often land. And he's got these really explosive side steps. This is my favorite right here, where he comes around like that and hits you.
It's a really, really huge step.
It is, yeah. So, if your opponent is patient... Yeah, exactly. He loves getting in there and brawling. Probably the closest to how I'd fight with a saber IRL, which isn't necessarily the most skillful, but it's sort of my fighting style IRL. It's like, I love getting in there and starting the fight, because I'm pretty athletic and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I like sort of dictating the start of the fight, if I can.
So, from a physics perspective, I love how ankle-centric this guy is.
Yeah.
It means not only is he explosive, but he telegraphs very little compared to many of the other characters.
Yeah. Yeah. And what else does he have? He has this trick shot. I'm not actually a fan of it, to be honest. I'm curious what you think of it.
Those kinds of shots are for very specific circumstances, and what I would love to see is whether Barabasz can do that while someone's trying to initiate a grab.
I would say no, typically. If they're trying to grab, typically the grab will override that, and it'll be an execution, yeah.
That's what those kinds of off-angled hits at close range are good for. They're basically anti-hug technology.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you would apply it in this particular game well. I'm sure there's someone who can, but that would be a very niche move for me.
Yeah. For me it is as well, in-game. Like, I was sometimes able to land it on opponents who tried backing away, and it sort of hit their hand in the middle of an exchange. But that's about it. Most of the time, though, I'm finding this is just presenting an opening. It's just way too slow, I think, in this game. Especially because the grab defense in this game is typically just to back away, right? Like, if somebody tries to grab you, you just back away, and then you'll break off, and you'll be just fine. What else? He has... This sidestep here comes from long guard, which is pretty cool. So, if a rapier user, for instance, were to try stabbing me, I can bind the blades, try and come around and land a hit. This one, it looks more open, but he covers more ground, and it threatens the guard a lot more. But if an opponent is very patient, then sometimes this wide sidestep is just a waste of time. So I think it's pretty nicely balanced. You have to time it well. If you spend your time just opening with this, you're in trouble.
Right. So notice he's got sort of a false moulinet there. He's not actually covering his head during the sidestep.
Yeah.
So if someone has a really good snappy tempo cut, they could punish that very quickly.
Yeah. So when I'm fighting Isabella players, you saw that snap cut earlier? That's the counter to my sidestep. That will stop it instantly if I try doing that in her measure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else? He has the same back Y, too, which is pretty cool, that Jan has. So I can apply pressure and in some exchange or something, and then they think they have an opportunity. I can slip this in and back off. And Bar is very mobile, so he can get out very quickly as well.
Yep.
Yeah. And I love this upcut as well. It's not very good at threatening auto guard as an opening per se, but if your opponent's exchanging with you, it can be good to use this to target the hand with. And so if you hit the hand with that, the hand's going to sail right off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's your cut through your Polish Quart right there.
Yeah, exactly. And he can play a pretty decent high-low game as well. So I can do these snap cuts and then go low, for example. And that cut's fairly powerful, so there's a natural chance it will end the fight. Sometimes in this game, leg cuts don't end the fight instantly. They sort of cause damage. But But this one has quite a bit of rotation, so it does a pretty good job. But
Yeah,
even
watch
if
that
the
body sink, how much of his weight goes behind that cut.
yeah, and even if this doesn't kill, like there's stuff you can follow up with too. So.
Oh yeah.
And he also has this sidestep as well. I think it's intended as a parry, which sometimes does happen in game. It's very tough to deliberately do, but if you manage it, it looks spectacular, and it's this big, powerful
if you
cut.
manage it, your opponent's in real trouble.
Yeah, 100%. Because not only are you parrying it, but you're getting an angle on your opponent. It can be an offensive tool as well, but it's a little bit slow, so you got to be very careful trying to use it. And he has some lunges as well. He's got this cut here called the belly lunge.
Yep.
Again, another one of those moves you really don't want to open with too much because here's my head, right? But it does target certain characters' guards, especially those characters that have their bodies open. It can target that area very well. And it can be good, again, to alternate from high to low and just keep applying pressure that way. That's how I tend to play Barabasz, is I love the exchanges and I love getting in there and picking at your guard, especially if you're passive. That's what I'll be doing, and I'll try to overwhelm you that way.
Also notice how he regathers his back foot. So that's a great one if you have players whose primary response is to fly out.
Yeah.
So as long as you get something that stops your blade and you're not paying the whiff penalty, lunge, lunge.
Yeah. And again, the back Y, the dreaded back Y cut is always an option after. So if he tries to punish me, that is a danger that he could run into. What else? He's got this one as well. I don't use it very much, but the timing can throw people off sometimes. It's much slower on the surface, but he reaches more.
So that is a classic action in false tempo, and a lot of early modern cut fencing stuff acts in false tempo on purpose in order to draw out an attack. At which point you've got your strong presented, and snapping out with the weak to land a cut is very, very simple. So it's a little bit more of an advanced move, but if you have good mastery of the tempo and you can sucker somebody into attacking right into your false tempo because you are moving forward before you present that threat, you can really wrong foot people with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So, yeah, in this game, it really is difficult to apply that one because I think Barabasz is more about he's more about the speed. So when you start throwing stuff like this, I feel like in the game anyway, it's often a waste of time because I feel like I can throw 2 attacks in the time it takes to throw that one. So there might be situations where that's good, but oftentimes I feel like you're just wasting a tempo. What else?
So that's the eternal question of, do I want lots of little fast tempo or one big one?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. He's got a few feint moves too. This one is called the hula hey or something. And it looks.
I did that to a guy this morning.
Really?
Yep.
It's amazing. Yeah. So it's one of those moves. It's really out there, but again, if your opponent isn't prepared for it, there's a real threat that it will just end the fight right there. Even if you're just trying to defend, because you're confused. You're like, whoa, shit. I don't know.
You're pulling him out of position and then giving him a big cut where he's not.
Yeah. And you don't have to go through with it, too. So you can feint it, but then go back into something else as well. You don't have to go forward with that attack if you don't want to. So that's pretty nice. Like, again, back Y, classic option. If this is a little bit slow, but theoretically you could also try to go straight for a sidestep if your opponent's making a mistake, too. Like, I could see a situation where somebody tries to throw a committed thrust to punish that, and then maybe I get this wide sidestep going, and I land a hit in their flank. So there's a lot of stuff you could do from there besides just the threat of the feint cut. But that's awesome. He literally just did that to somebody, hey?
Yep, I had one of my students who was being a little bit too telegraphy with their defenses, and
Mm-hmm.
I just pulled him open and belly popped him. Did that 3 or 4 times in a row until he fixed his guard, and I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
It's really useful against people who primarily move their arms to parry rather than getting their body and their feet involved.
Yeah.
Because while you're waggling your saber around, you haven't actually changed the underlying geometry of the fight in terms of your footwork
Mm-hmm.
and body position. So that feint will land, and it will land hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and in this game, it's a powerful move. If it lands, there's a pretty good chance. Even if you're Gedeon or something, it's probably gonna end your life right there.
Mm-hmm.
What else? We called this one the Thunder Punch. It's not called that in the game, and it's probably not called that in any manual, but it's this.
Mm-hmm.
And when it lands, it's weird because it behaves like a cut. It can actually beat blades down, which I guess makes some sense, but it kind of looks strange. But if you do land this attack, it's pretty hard to land, but if you do land it, it hits with a lot of force. And it's one of those moves you want to throw if you want to show off. Because it's so committed and so risky. If you make any mistake in the middle of this, you're just dead.
Right. So what's the role of the hand? That when that backhand comes out, is that slapping the opponent's weapon, or is that just a little strike to slow them down so you can land the final blow with the blade?
That's just sort of showing off, like it's part of the move.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I don't know if this is in any saber manual or anything, or if this is a fun move Kupol devised. I like throwing it occasionally for funsies, but it's really risky. You've got to be so sure.
If you have a dueling glove, it's got mail lining the inside of the palm, you can make slapping movements like that against blades, especially thrusting blades, in order to allow yourself to close into distance using your slap as your cover rather than committing your blade to the bind. So that is around and exists. It's not common.
I see.
But it's actually very useful that way. Here, of course, you don't have the armored glove, so don't get your hand cut off.
Yeah. So that one is more of a showboating move in the context of this game. But that's pretty interesting. I remember I read, I think it was in Swordsman of the British Empire by D.A. Kingsley, but there's a mention of British hussars wearing mailed gloves to fight against Indian swordsmen using these sharp tulwars because they were afraid of having their hands cut off all the time. And so they were sort of adopting chainmail, and this was in the 19th century of all time periods. People don't tend to associate that time period with armor. But in some of these parts of the world where British cavalrymen were still encountering a lot of these old-ish weapons and fighting styles, they were...
people who were extremely proficient with them.
Yeah, exactly. So they started adopting some of the local armor, some of the local, fighting styles, etc. And because a lot of cavalry troopers were losing their hands to these tulwars out of nowhere, just getting these absolutely gruesome cuts. And if you ever read that book, there's all sorts of accounts of people having skulls cleaved into and just all sorts of nasty stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And so having even just a little bit of protection on your limbs made a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. That gives you a target area that's meaningless to strike.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And the funny thing is as well, even the turbans that some of those warriors were wearing could actually be protection in and of themselves against saber strikes. We often don't think of that as protection, but that's layers and layers of cloth. And so that makes a huge difference.
Layers of twisted cloth.
Yes.
So you've got it is absolutely cloth armor.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, people often joke about Sikh like, oh, they don't like wearing helmets, blah blah blah. That is a helmet, and especially in the context of their fighting styles, it basically functioned as that in a lot of respects. So
Yes.
yeah. So that's Barabash. Um.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, there was the
I got
long
time for
guard.
one more if we're quick.
All right. Awesome. What's a quick one? Let's do Zera. Zera seems like he'd be pretty quick, and then we'll cover the rest maybe in a future session.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I love
So.
12% Lichtenauer. That's a great description.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I was gonna comment on that. Like, I really found this hilarious because it is pretty accurate to how he plays too. Like, this guy isn't a true Lichtenauer fencer because he's drunk. He's doing a lot of batshit insane stuff, but I'd say that's also Zera's strength if you're fighting against him. Is he throws a lot of stuff that is just unhinged. Like, why the hell are you doing this? But it can be used to trick your opponent and to catch them off guard or to overwhelm them at a moment's notice. But he does have some moves that you'd expect from a German fencing tradition as well. Like, he has this work, and then he does this wide sort of recovery, but you can use it the way you would expect. You can use it to interrupt an attack sometimes and get a single tempo kill. It's just that his recovery afterwards is so long. You gotta recover from it afterwards if you do that combination. And a lot of his cuts are pretty powerful. You saw there, if he's just standing there flat-footed, he's in a bit of trouble. He just took a hit to the arm. And a lot of these combos, they take up a lot of space. They might seem like they're really wide, but they cover a ton of space. And you saw that cut to thrust just now, too. What else? I love this one as well. He comes in and sidesteps like that. You can easily clip somebody in the face with that if they're trying to challenge it.
Yep, and the way he's depicted with his body weight, when you sacrifice balance for mobility, and there are very few styles in the world that do it, you get a lot of mobility. So that sidestep is very quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's how I would describe Zera in a nutshell. Is yes, he's slow on the surface. He's sort of lumbering around drunk, but he's a lot like a bear. He moves way faster at times than you think he has any business moving in short bursts, and he hits with a lot of force. So where Barabasz is like a wild cat or something, like Zera's a bear. Like he comes in really quickly out of nowhere, sort of a calm before the storm aggression, and just eats you alive with these powerful attacks with different timing.
Right, because all his momentum is committed.
Yeah, and he has this back Y as well. A lot of the meta characters have something like this, just this really safe snap cut type action to get out of range, and this one's really dangerous because of how much range it covers.
Yeah.
And you might hear Zera does a lot of this yelling when he fights, too. It's kind of funny. Some new stuff Kubel added.
Oh, I love the cackle.
Yeah. And he's got these wide upcuts as well. And even some of his retreat attacks, he's got these wide... Now, he does stumble a bit, but... You can see the thinking behind the moves at the very least, even though he's drunk. Like, there's a trained fencer somewhere in there, even though he's unhinged right now and drunk.
Yeah.
And his backstory is he's not actually a monk. He's a nobleman who sort of lost his status due to crimes he's committed, and now he's pretending to be a monk. So that's his little backstory. I do like that he has the monk aesthetic, though, because monks are actually more associated with swordsmanship, I found, than people realize. In a lot of cultures. They were writing stuff down, they were teaching people how to sword fight. etc.
And they were very often second or third sons. And if the first son died, guess who got called out of the monastery?
Yep. 100%. So that's the thing as well, is people today assume clerics are just religious people, and sort of they only do religious occupations. But especially in the medieval period, they were scribes, they were librarians, they were scholars, they were alchemists, like you name it. They were any sort of learned profession you can think of.
All right, I'm going to have to go in a minute or two.
Yeah.
So what is your absolutely favorite unhinged Zera move for me?
I really like his holy stance. So he does this, and then just drops the sword right down. It's great. And it can be a stab or a cut. You don't... And that's the cool thing about longsword, is you can make a thrusting motion and turn it into a cut or vice versa. And Zera, even though he's drunk, he can do that.
That is an absolutely beautiful, here I'm wide open, go for it move.
Yeah, and you feel so stupid if you let that hit. You can sidestep it, of course, but again, it's very intimidating though too. And so the trap you can fall into against Zera is you turtle up against him instead of trying to sort of hit his hand or win initiative
and
back.
Then you've turtled up against a weapon with superior reach and power, and you deserve what you get.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be a tough conundrum against the strong Zera player. He's got these powerful attacks you're afraid to approach against, but if you're too afraid, then you're just falling into his hands anyway. So,
Beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. So if he overextends, you can beat him easily, but he can still be very formidable in the right hands. Anyway, that's Zera in a nutshell.
Alrighty. Well, sir, thank you for having me over. I
No
am
problem.
going to have to take off here.
Yeah, it was an honor to have you on board and discussing swords, fighting styles, and a little bit of history in there too.
That's all mine. Just let me know when you want to do it again, and I'll see if I can make the schedules work.
Beautiful. All right. I'll catch you later then.
Have a good one.
Yep. See ya.